All right, so the next goal here is a rolling chassis. Actually, I've got a rolling chassis right here. So I've taken the frame rails and I mounted them to this little contraption that rolls around, but that's not actually the goal. We're going to get a real rolling chassis together, which is going to require making all these pieces. All these pieces, the U-joint, U-bolts, the spacers, the little thing at the top that keeps these U-bolts separated, the one at the bottom, even the bottom plates on the U-bolts, all of those things were lost. Or not just lost, rusted away and rotted away. So this is a prototype I've put together. You can see that, get in here, look at that, how that works. These little bumps right here, it keeps the U-bolt from moving back and forth, keeps it nice and spaced, and then it goes over the top of this piece of wood that sort of serves as a cushion. Even another piece of wood here is curved with the leaf spring. And then you've got this plate down here at the bottom that's curved with the leaf spring. And basically this keeps the U-bolt perpendicular to the bottom here. Otherwise, as you tighten this, it would want to work that way and work up this way. So this keeps them spaced out properly. This plate is too thick and it's supposed to be cut in like here and across and then out. So I'm gonna make this out, the changes for doing all four of these will be to have this plate be thinner. I'm gonna go with 16 gauge, actually rounded, cut across here and back out. This piece right here was a little too skinny, so it needs to be a little thicker and a good bit wider. This piece here at the top is a little bit too thick, so it needs to be planed down one more time. The part at the top, which is what we're gonna do next, turned out really good. I did that freehand, but it turned out perfect. So the first thing we need to do is make 3 more of these. I've tried a couple things to automate this process. When I first did this original one, I actually did it freestyle. I marked the lines on the back, and then I put a bolt down and basically put 2 pieces of metal under the press and put it down there and bend it. I tried to sort of automate that by having, by building this right here where each one would fit in. You put the flat piece in, you can see how it sort of works there, and bends it down in there. The problem with this is that worked good, but there were 2 issues. This was not deep enough, and then you can see the wood compresses really bad. And so that just popped it up on one side and popped it up on the other. So that didn't work at all. I'm gonna try this one more time and then I'll probably go back to doing it all freestyle. The idea now is I've got a steel plate here. We're gonna put these 2 here and then this one out at exactly 4 inches from the outside of this, or 4.04 from the outside of that and the outside of that, so that I can set a flat bar in there, bend it pretty much anywhere on the end. Then once I have that bend and turn it around and then clamp it to where it hits right here. And so then that will put this bend at the right spot. On the other side, let's see, where is it? Okay, so pushing it down, I have this bolt that I've just epoxied to this piece of a block of steel there. And this goes down and it pushes it down. And then obviously that would just bend this up in a V. So you have to have two flat pieces on each side of it. So basically you put that in there like that. You have a flat piece here, flat piece here, this in the center. And then as you press that down, it does initially bend up, but then these 2 pieces touch here and bends it back down flat. So that's the idea of that. And we're gonna go ahead and put all this together. I will, again, epoxy these in place, take them over to the drill press, drill holes here, 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 and here, and then run countersink in the bottom, and we'll run bolts up, and then bolt these down onto there. So that should keep them in place. The reason I used the wood here before, I mean, obviously that didn't work, was so I could screw down into it. this way I can send the bolts up from the bottom and then hold it in place. And I've made it a little bit wider so that the top of the bolts won't get in the way. So this is actually the third attempt, so we'll see if this one works. And if not, we'll do the fourth one. All right, so try number 3. This is the new one. Had to make a couple little modifications. These bolts were closer together, so I had to trim that down. Not a big deal. So this is an old piece I was working with. The idea is that you cut this to 6 inches, put it in right there. Put these on either side. And then you take this and you put that right in the middle, and then you push that down with the press. So let's cut another one, fresh one to 6 inches. We'll put it. Got a nice bend to it, good definition, nice little hump. All right, now we're going to do second bend. So that you get that one right here at the end, hold it in place there, and then put it up against the nut, so hold it in line and square. Clamp this on the other side. Yeah. Right there. Square. Okay, right in the middle, I got these square. Should put the bend right in this right spot. Yep, all the way down. Okay. There's the second bend. Looks out really good. It gets the spacing between the two. You can see the good definition. and a nice bend. And then we put that in the vise and put a bolt right behind it. We'll show how that sets in, and you just round that edge off, and that's it. Okay, you can see how I've got it in the vise here. I've got these two pieces on each side sort of supporting it. I got the nut or the bolt here, and then this is sticking up. I'm gonna round that over so it just kind of comes straight out to about right there, and then we'll trim that to fit and file it down, and that'll be it. Okay, so we got this rounded over, and that's just what we want. We'll trim these down and clean it up just a little bit. We wanted basically 4 inches between the bumps there, so that's good. And a nice sharp definition there that'll keep the U-bolt in place. And then we've got these overlays, and if you remember from the picture, these guys fit in there like that. So that's what that does. All right, so I trimmed this to fit, clean it up, and 3 more to go. All righty, looking good, all done with those. Got to cut the wood for the spacers. Gonna cut those a little bit wider this time. And then I got to do the bottom bracket. Alright, so one of the other videos you saw I restored this joiner, and really I don't think I've shown it being used yet. So I've already planed this down once or twice, but I thought I'd show it being run through one more time to show how easy it is. I'm using it as a thickness planer to some degree here rather than just a joiner, but it works well for that on small things. Alright, so those are all cut now. So the top pieces are done. And then the next piece is this piece here. It serves 2 purposes. One is to give a spacer for the head of that bolt. And 2 is the bottom of the frame rail, of course, is flat, and the leaf spring is curved. So it's got to have that, make up that difference here with the curve. I cut this the first time by just, you can kind of see the little saw marks. With the handsaw, just cutting this way, all the way down, a little bit deeper as I went, and then breaking out with the chisel and smoothing it out. I could certainly do that again. It worked okay. It might be good enough, but I'm gonna look around a little bit and see if I can find a little bit better way of doing that. This one also needs to be a little bit wider and just a little bit thicker. So I'll make those adjustments as well this time. So a good bit of progress. I finally figured out that the way I should do this, which was obvious, was with the bandsaw. So I took the metal blade off, put one of my resaw blades back in, and just cut this. And I just traced it before, and it gets a nice bend on there, so that fits in real nice. So those 4 are done. They do need the hole drilled in the center. So down to the plate at the bottom. This was the prototype I made, and it fits and works just fine, but it's too thick. This is the 16 gauge sheet metal that I got, and it's just right. Now I took where these holes are and transferred them. No, actually I didn't transfer them. I measured them and laid it back out here and then double checked it. The basic plan here, and I put these, I center drilled all these so that I can then transfer them onto the layout fluid that I put on there. Is going to cut in here. I'm going to take, I'm sorry, it was a 5/16 drill bit. Drill a hole here, 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 and here. And then when I come back, I'll cut this way, I'll cut this way, I'll cut into here, and then I should have enough room to cut down this way, and same thing on the other side. So that will give me the cut in a little bit of round, which will be courtesy of the drill. And here a little bit of round. And then drill these out normally. So I'm going to take this now and transfer them to these other three and then drill them out and hope for the best. All right, I finished cutting out the plates, and I got them curved, fit the top here. Actually, they go under the bottom. Rounded all the edges. It turned out really good. I'm happy with that. It was one of the things I was most worried about, was how I was going to get that done, and those are just what I needed. So just real briefly, that goes there. This goes underneath here. These guys go up in the top and the frame rail. So you got in the frame rail touching here, and you have the bottom. You have the U-joints or U-bolts that go through here. All right, so now we do the bottom to where the leaf springs fit onto the axle. So we're gonna go ahead and put these away and bring the axle up, and I think that the way it goes on is gonna be a little bit different. It appears to me that the axle is threaded, and I know when I got it, it had some broken off studs. So it looks like I'm probably going to be putting some clamps here and here, taking this bolt out, and then bolting that down onto the axle. And then once that's on the axle, I'm going to be measuring the parts that fit there at the bottom. Again, make a prototype of that, and then either duplicate it or remake the parts to get the rest of it done. So here's how the axle fits into the leaf spring. You can see here, well, actually, you see at the top it has a bolt here. There's also one that goes under from the bottom there, and then it goes into the bottom of the axle. And then the way they have this is they have a metal plate that goes under here, a thin one with basically just edges around it that keep a wood block in place here. And then the old U-bolts here. The U-bolt goes over here and down. Now you can kind of see why I got the new U-bolts. These are just a little rusted away. So that's why we got the new ones. All right, so the blocks are what we need to make now. So what I've done with that was I took actually it was 1.5 by 1.5. I put a 1/2 inch, glued a 1/2 inch 1.5 by 1/2 inch board on that, and then I used a hole saw, 1 3/4 hole saw, which is what the diameter of the shaft is, to drill through that, and then cut that out. And then if you take it over, let's see if I can slide it in here. This obviously is going to fit nice around there, and you should be able to slide it over. And I can't quite get the camera down there. There we go. So basically, you get that in there, and then trace it, and then cut it out. So I guess that's the way they did it before. It certainly looks to be a nice way of doing it. So that's what we're gonna do. We cut that out, and then we need to make the plate that hold these little blocks in place. Otherwise, without the plate, they could just slide right out either way. So you're gonna trace that out and make the plate, and then put that on there. Okay, so I got a good prototype. Fortunately, a buddy of mine, Andy, who has a couple Metz, was kind enough to send along some pictures that pointed out a great detail. This plate here does two things. One, it keeps this block from moving out this way. And the second thing is it has a bump out here. You see this comes out, it's a notch in, and that keeps this U-bolt from sliding out in that direction as well. You can see it goes out underneath to the other side. You can see the bump out comes out here too. So that holds the U-bolts in place and keeps the wood blocks. The prototype is good, but it needs to be a little bit longer, probably only about 2/10 of an inch longer. Come out to about right here, and then you cut this down at an angle. So I'll do it one more time, and then I think we'll have something we can duplicate. So it's looking good. All right, so I've made great progress. The front axle is done. Working here on the rear axle, and I thought I would take a minute to point out a few details. These bottom plates turned out to be pretty easy. One trick I learned was to drill the holes before cutting this part out. That way, he had 4 rectangular pieces of metal, and I could put them all together in the drill press vise and drill the hole in the center all at once. The other thing is I've changed from oak to hickory. I'm a member of the AACA forum. That's the Antique Automobile Club of America. I couldn't get anywhere near where I am without their help. These guys are the most knowledgeable and most helpful group around. One of them said, hey, what kind of wood are you using? Given the amount of really the compressibility, the compression that's going to be on these pieces. And I really hadn't given that any thought. And I looked at oak, and then I looked at some of the other North American hardwoods, and hickory way more withstands the compression a lot more. It's a harder wood. You think about it, it's used for tool handles, even the artillery wheels, style wheels is used for that. So that was a much better choice of wood, so I went and got that. And I've cut all these out, and this, you see how these fit in, and then the axle just sits right down on top of that. I had another problem. Well, I knew I had this problem. The spring clip on this one, on the rear one, is broken off. I will eventually debraze this, take it off, and put a new one on. But I came up with a solution for that based on what I saw on another Metz, and that is, it looks like in the later years they added these on top. I noticed that some of the Metz had the little clip stuck out further and were a little kind of bent up. I think they added these as extra protection because, well, obviously you can see this one broke off, and I had 2 other axles before also broke off. So I made one of these to go on for now, and that solves the problem. So I will change this one out and put a new one on, but I'm probably going to go and make these for all of them. I think it's a good, safe thing to do. So we'll get this one put together, and then I'll show you how it looks on those frame rails. And look what we have here. We now have axles on our frame rails. It's not a big deal, but to have a rolling chassis, having axles helps. So it's a good first step. We'll need wheels next. We're going to work on those. And then we will need the all the hubs and bearings that go on there. So we have to work on those. That's what the back one looks like. That's a connection to the frame rail. Looks out really nice. The hubs have a lot of issues. The bearings, we're going to use sort of the more modern. I say modern, those were available back in the late teens and early 20s. But this car used loose ball bearings. So we're not going to use those. We're going to use the Timken tapered roller bearings to make those work. And the hubs that came on the car will require a little bit of modification and a little bit of work on the lathe. So that's going to be a little bit more involved process. But the next video up will be putting the wheels back together. They were significantly rusted and deteriorated, and had loose fellows and all the normal problems with 100-year-old wheels. So we're going to see if we can restore those and get those back in top condition. If we can, we'll use them. But since that's a safety item, if we can't, we'll buy new ones. So we'll get started on that next.